1994, I was involved in a very bad accident where I was about 60 miles outside of Laredo, Texas, in the town of San Ignacio. It's about 40 miles outside of, about 20 miles outside of Zapata. We went for a joy drive that night. Me and two friends made it to Zapata, but never made it back on our own accord. I ended up losing control of the car, going about 75 miles an hour, and off an incline on a turn. We flew off the incline about 30 feet in the air and continued to fly, landing over the fence of the ranch that we buried into. We hit from fender first, the front end of the vehicle, but the tires caught, dug into the ground, and spin the car over. We ended up rolling about 7 times. You know, people say they've been in a dryer, and they know what it feels like to be in a dryer. Been there and done that. And it was, at the time, you know, that old saying, you know, you see people in these videos where they say, at this moment, he knew he fucked up. Well, at that moment, I did. But I knew I was free. No more burdens of my life that I had at the time. I was about to liberate them, but I didn't. And as we were rolling over and over, I put my hand over my partner's face, my friend's face, and covered it to shield him from getting cut in the windshield. And by doing so, I ended up carving my hand up, busting myself pretty good. My hat at the time, my cowboy hat that I had, was made of felt, saved my head from being lacerated, my face, on my head at the windshield. There were no airbags in that vehicle, so it was an older, mid-80s vehicle, a Nissan. And when they gave me the hat in the hospital, I'm kind of cut in the head, aren't I? It was a black hat, right? But no, it was purple now because it was soaked in blood from my head. And even though I didn't cut up my face, I got cuts around it. Ended up fracturing both of my wrists, getting a concussion, and 37 lacerations on my left arm, 46 on my right arm. I was pretty beat up. We had to make our way to the road. It was about roughly now about 90 yards from where we landed, from rolling over, maybe 150, I couldn't tell. And because we landed upside down, my stupid ass was so discombobulated at the time that I actually wanted to try to roll the car over and put it back and see if we could, you know, drive it back into town. And mind you, these axles are twisted in knots, literally. But so we make it back to the main road, and now you're in an isolated area where you can't really see anything outside the darkness, and you have no way to tell which way is Laredo and which way is the way you came. So we're just judging the traffic that's coming back and forth from the oil workers. and they trying to figure out which way's back to town. And I'm busted up pretty good. My hands are bleeding profusely, my wrists and such. My buddy, I don't mention his name, but he wrapped my hands up with his flannel shirt, stopped me to try to stop the bleeding. And because we flew over the fence, we didn't destroy it. We had to kind of get through a barbed wire fence to the main road. So we're there waiting, and nobody's stopping. So we're like, okay, what do? We kind of having an argument on the side of the road. And I tell my buddy, hey, just do me a favor, step in front of a vehicle. Not like step in front of them, at the last minute, but ahead of time, so they'll slow down and maybe help us. And one guy did do that. He was an oil worker. He helped us. I don't know how to pick up hitchhikers so they get fired, but he had mercy on us and did pick us up and drove us to town and picked us up and took us to town and dropped us off at Mercy Hospital in Laredo. And first time ever in my life I was given the red carpet treatment once they unbandaged my arms and the blood started dropping down like a sink with the faucet open. And they got me into the OR real quick and started checking me out. And there I am, busted up pretty good, laughing and crying at the same time. I was deranged or not deranged, I was just out of it. I was, I guess what they call, when you don't feel any pain anymore, you're in shock. I couldn't feel my arms or my legs as far as the pain that they were going through. And when I started cutting off the tissue in my hands, the spaghetti, the muscle tissue was sticking out on both sides of my right hand. I didn't feel it because I was just so out of it as far as my ability to feel pain. Thinking back on it now, through all of it, I don't know what that did to me, but it did me good. When you make that, there's a moment in your life sometimes, if you ever get to notice it, when you're this close to something, car wreck or life experience, where you get that moment to make your peace with life. And I did, but I guess it wasn't my time. I was brought back, and sometimes I feel like death cheated me because I had it coming and it didn't exactly roll out the way I needed it to. But here I am, 30 years later, 26 years later, and it's just interesting reflecting on it back, how bad it was and how I felt. I still had a bunch of needles in my leg that were coming out little by little from the cactus that I soaked up. When I went to go see the vehicle the next day, it was amazing how it was a ball of metal, literally. And I walked away. I don't know why I'm documenting this. I'm just guessing. It has to be said at one point or another. So if anybody ever wonders why and what, here you go. Have a good evening.